Hey there and welcome to the A.D.K rock and metal channel. Now it's just me, Dave. Today there is no Andy and no Kirk. This is a video I decided to kind of put out on the channel myself. Mainly because I don't know if this is a topic that would have been added to in a multiple discussion point of view. I am very concise in what I believe in this case. And maybe we will do a discussion, but we have discussed a little bit of these topics in various other times on the channel. But so as you know, goes from the title. For me, I believe, and I truly do believe this, that bands and record labels as a whole are actually causing themselves the biggest problem financially. So we know that at the moment bands are struggling financially. The music industry is in a complete and utter mess. And fundamentally, there's bands and music labels or record companies could literally change this overnight if they really, really wanted to. And it's by simply doing one thing. And that's stop putting your music on streaming platforms. Whether it's Spotify, whether it's iTunes, whatever it is nowadays, Deezer, whatever it might be. If all the bands and all the record labels said, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore, and we're going to do physical media like CDs, vinyl, whatever they might do, and of course digital downloads, which is another way that you can get your music onto your players. I personally always buy digital downloads. I don't use streaming, because then at least the bands, the record companies, and by virtue of the record label, the bands themselves would get paid. Now, there is always the argument that's going to say, yes, but if you do it on Spotify and you do it on there, you get access. You can get onto a Spotify playlist and you'll get massive access to lots of different places and you'll get great exposure. But I'm going to say stop right there. Stop right there for a second. And go back to before streaming. And remember when people would ask you, yeah, could you play this gig for me? I can't pay you, but you'll get great exposure. And people would argue and say, well, exposure doesn't cover me for it. What I need is to be paid. But now we expect that that's okay. It's okay to give my music away for free. You go in the studio, you spend all that money with a producer, an engineer, recording, hours and hours and hours of rehearsing, writing, and then what you do is you take it and you just give it away with the hope that you're going to get lots and lots of views, and you've got inkling the hope that you might get a few gigs. With those gigs that you then get, you're very lucky because you'll then get, let's say you're a big band, you're playing a festival or you're playing a large venue with thousands of seats, so you're playing a large arena or something like that. You do £100,000 is what you earn on that one night. Once you take out your 30% you have to give to the venue for your merchandise sales, once you give your 30% that you need to pay for your merchandise, once you then give all your overheads, you'll be lucky if you clear 20 grand. Now you might go, hey, 20 grand a night, that is not bad. But remember, you don't work every night. You're not on gigs every night. So let's say you're only doing it for us, and then you've got to split it several ways. Once you actually break it down, you might make 20 or 30 grand a year. That's not right if you're going to go for it, because you've got to then get money and fund the next album. Your career as a musician may not go on that long. You've only got a limited period of time. Some bands, like the big bands like you will have, like your Metallicas and Megadeths, etc., have got that longevity, but a lot of bands don't. And that's the challenge. You need to make hay while the sun is shining, and at the moment you're not making hay when you're giving your music away for free. So let's get back to what I realised. If the labels and the bands all stopped using the Spotify for putting releases out, and what I would say is there is an opportunity. You could still use Spotify for a couple of reasons, and I'm using Spotify as it's one of the biggest. But if you only put your album out on digital download or physical copies like CDs, because even if you wanted to do retro and do cassettes, but basically physical media, and then you put your single out on Spotify and you did some promo clips, like a minute and a half of certain songs, then you're encouraging people to come over to your channel, to Bandcamp, to wherever it might be, to buy your album, because you need to make the revenue. And at the same time, you're bringing them over to your merchandise shop for your merchandise as well. These are all things that bands can be doing, but what we've simply got is bands are scared to make that decision. What the bands are worried about is, what if I don't put my music on Spotify? Then I've lost out. So let's go for a little bit hypothetical. Let's say you, as a band, you're doing reasonably well. You look at your monthly followers, you look at your monthly listeners, and let's say you've got 20,000 followers on your Spotify. Amazing, brilliant. but they're not all going to be in your local area. So let's say you're going to go to play a gig. You're still only playing to a gig to 20 or 30 people. And you could turn around and think about the old way of gigging, i.e. in the 80s, where you built up a following on the road. That doesn't exist in the local gigging. It takes a very long time. You're going to spend a lot of time, and you might pick up 1 or 2 new followers on each gig, but that's not going to help you break even. If you're sitting there having to gig all year round, all the costs that are involved in it, you pick up 100 new people over the year. Is it really worth it? Versus doing quality production, quality promotion via your video releases of your album, and actually generating CD sales. Why wouldn't you want to do this? Use a Spotify for simple snippet promotion, and make sure and direct people back to your channel, your website, to promote your band. And that is my tip on what bands need to be doing. But will they do it? Of course they won't. They'll still just go, do you know what, we're a small band, no one really knows us, sod it, let's just throw it out there, and if we get big, then we'll, for the next album, we won't do it. That's what I see a lot of bands talking about. I disagree with that completely wholeheartedly, and would never personally do that. I don't believe in just throwing your music out there and giving it away for free. You work for it, you've earned that money, you've earned the right to be paid for what you do. Stop devaluing your artistry, your craft, your musicianship. You've written a song, you spent so much time doing it. Don't give it away for free. Don't be a chump. Give them some promo stuff and make sure you sell it via your own Bandcamp. So that's my tips for bands out there. Now, if you disagree with me, I wholeheartedly ask you to write down in the comments below about your thoughts on it. And it is an open forum to have that discussion. You're probably never going to convince me otherwise, but if you can find a way to tell me that Spotify is a great way of doing it, and you can tell me how else you're going to make that money back, I want to hear about it in the comments down below. Now, if you like this video, please do like, share and subscribe, and I will see you with Andy and Kirk on another video sometime very soon. Take care.